So imagine you just found out that the absolute biggest threat to your company's survival isn't a fierce new competitor, it isn't even employee compensation. Well, recent data from the MIT Sloan Management Review reveals a truly intriguing business dilemma. A toxic workplace culture is actually 10.4 times more predictive of employee attrition than pay. Think about that for a second. 10.4 times. It's a staggering figure, and it completely shifts how we need to think about modern workplace dynamics and why people, actually choose to stay at their jobs. To really navigate this kind of modern corporate landscape, communicating effectively isn't just about using perfect grammar. It's about understanding the deep psychology of the people we work with every single day. Think of this explainer as your personal coaching session. We're going to elevate both your strategic business thinking and your workplace language all at once. Okay, let's dive right into our roadmap for today. We'll be looking at the cost of toxicity, psychological safety, the art of feedback, cultural competence, and finally, leading the future. Starting right off with point number 1, the cost of toxicity. Just take a look at this number, $2 billion. The Society for Human Resource Management published a finding that workplace incivility, which essentially just means rude, dismissive, or disrespectful behavior, hemorrhages roughly $2 billion a day in lost productivity in the US alone. A day. Why is that? Well, it all comes down to the immense cognitive load it places on employees. Instead of focusing on, say, execution and innovation, professionals are literally burning their mental bandwidth trying to navigate office politics and process the stress of feeling excluded. Let's actually pause here for a second because this language is incredibly useful for your own career. Notice how we aren't just learning single, isolated vocabulary words here, we're learning reusable business English chunks. Instead of just saying a company is bad, professionals refer to a toxic workplace. Instead of saying a bad manager makes us work worse, we say they degrade performance. And that mental exhaustion from stress we just talked about, we call that a heavy cognitive load. Try using these exact chunks the next time you're discussing team dynamics. You see, when toxicity goes unchecked, it creates what researchers call a cognitive monoculture. It's basically an environment where everyone thinks exactly the same because they're simply too afraid to disagree. It leads to gatekeeping and groupthink, and it actively destroys innovation. On the flip side, we have cognitive diversity. This is where a company hires for culture add rather than just culture fit. It acts as a structural defense, ensuring different problem-solving styles collide to create way better, safer outcomes. Which brings us to number 2, psychological safety. The real foundation of organizational resilience is this brilliant concept from McKinsey, psychological safety. They define it as the absence of interpersonal fear. Now, it sounds incredibly simple, right? But it is the absolute fundamental prerequisite for high-performing teams. It means creating a culture where employees feel completely safe to admit mistakes, share wild ideas, and most importantly, speak truth to power without the fear of negative repercussions or being marginalized. Of course, fostering this safety requires us to regulate our own communication. Let's do a quick say it better moment. When things go wrong at work, your immediate human instinct might be to just blurt out, "I'm angry about this decision." But a professional operating in a psychologically safe way elevates that emotional reaction. Instead, try saying, "I have some reservations about this approach," or "I'd like to discuss a concern." This minor shift in language is a real game changer. It transforms a defensive reaction into a collaborative, professional dialogue. And this brilliantly illustrates that idea. Providing comfort and compassionate leadership is vital for mental health, especially right now during periods of global uncertainty. Leaders who practice what is known as deliberate calm, using self-awareness and genuine empathy to guide their teams, they foster incredible loyalty. At the end of the day, people just want to work for leaders who see them as human beings first. Moving right along to number 3, the art of feedback. Because psychological safety isn't just about being nice, it relies entirely on how we handle difficult, critical conversations on a daily basis. Harvard Business Review outlines a highly practical, 3-part structure for giving constructive feedback that doesn't cross the line into personal attacks. Step 1, describe the context. Step 2, state the observable behavior without any personal judgment. And step 3, explain the consequence. This is absolutely a screenshot-worthy framework. When you skip any of these 3 elements, your feedback can suddenly sound like a really unfair character assessment. Let's listen to a short, authentic, mini workplace dialogue to hear how this actually sounds in practice. Imagine a manager speaking to an employee. They say, "During yesterday's client pitch, you interrupted the client twice while they were explaining their concerns. This made the client seem frustrated, and we didn't get the full picture of their needs." Do you notice why this language sounds so natural and professional? It doesn't just attack and say you were rude. It anchors the feedback in a specific context, an undeniable action, and the resulting business impact. Let's move to number 4 and see how this builds into cultural competence. When you have diverse global teams operating safely and communicating effectively, the results are literally undeniable. McKinsey data objectively shows that companies with culturally diverse management teams see 20% higher revenue. 20%! However, managing across borders requires a very specific toolkit. Researchers from the USC Master of Applied Psychology program outline 4 core skills of cultural competence. First, a diplomatic mindset, where you constantly check your own unconscious biases. Second, cultural learning, which means actively seeking to understand different backgrounds. Third, cultural reasoning, where you avoid snap judgments when a colleague behaves differently than you expect. And fourth, intercultural interaction, making the deliberate effort to genuinely connect with someone else's culture. These are essential tools for the modern leader. Let's do a quick language spotlight on an authentic phrase you can use in these exact cross-cultural settings. Err on the side of. This basically means to choose a safer, more cautious, or more considerate course of action when you're a bit uncertain. For example, you might say, when emailing a new international client, I always err on the side of formality. Or, if you aren't sure about their communication preferences, err on the side of politeness. It's a fantastic expression that immediately makes you sound highly competent and thoughtful. And that leads us to number 5, leading the future. As we look toward the horizon, deeply human-centric skills become even more critical. The rapid rise of AI and intelligent workplace agents is fundamentally shifting the very nature of work, which brings us to a really profound question posed by Deloitte in the recent Human Capital Trends research: how do we orchestrate capability and capacity at speed? As AI takes over administrative tasks, the most effective professionals won't be the ones who just try to do more things faster. No, the future belongs to those who redefine their value around what only humans can do, setting clear intent, designing collaborative systems, and building trust across diverse teams. Before we summarize, I want you to get involved. We're going to do a quick speaking practice. I want you to speak aloud wherever you are right now. Imagine your manager just used that excellent 3-part framework to give you some constructive feedback on a project, and honestly, you slightly disagree with it. How do you respond professionally without sounding defensive? Go ahead, pause, and say your response out loud right now. Okay, a fantastic professional model answer would be, thank you for that feedback. I appreciate you taking the time to share this. Even if you have reservations, starting with this phrase prevents defensive reactions and immediately demonstrates your professionalism. So, the crucial point today is that modern professionals must master both the psychology and the language of the workplace. Let's recap. We explored 3 key business ideas: fostering psychological safety, mastering the 3-part feedback structure, and developing cultural competence for global teams. And you've also learned 3 brilliant business English expressions you should start using today: discussing a heavy cognitive load, expressing that I have reservations, and choosing to err on the side of caution. I'll leave you with this final, provocative thought. As you step into your workplace tomorrow, whether as a leader or a colleague, ask yourself, are you building a culture of stagnation or a system of human agency? If you found today's lesson helpful, please like this video, subscribe to The English Effect, and share it with someone else who is learning English. Don't forget to download today's free vocabulary companion workbook using the link in the description. Until next time, keep learning, keep practicing, and remember, embrace English excellence.